While my husband was preparing dinner, I saw a text from my best friend on his phone. "I miss you." I replied for him, "Come over. My wife isn't home tonight." When the doorbell rang, my husband's face turned pale. "Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, grab a warm cup of tea and get comfortable. I'd love to know what time of day you're watching this video. Please comment M for morning, A for afternoon, or E for evening. Now, let me take you into this story. My husband, Derek, was standing at the stove, humming an old love song while the rich, savory aroma of slow-braised short ribs filled our spacious kitchen. It was the kind of domestic scene that belongs in a magazine spread about happy marriages. He was wearing the navy blue apron I had bought him for our 5th anniversary, carefully stirring the pot that simmered over a low flame. From the back, he looked like the perfect partner, a successful man who still knew how to take care of his family, a man who viewed cooking for his wife not as a chore, but as a privilege. Or at least, that is what he had always told me. I was sitting at the marble kitchen island, flipping through a design magazine, but my eyes weren't really seeing the pages. The warm yellow pendant lights illuminated the countertop where Derek's latest generation iPhone lay silent. Its black screen looked like a deep, dark pool, hiding secrets that not even I, the person who shared his bed and his life, had wanted to believe. Derek turned around with that radiant, boyish smile on his handsome face. The fine lines beginning to form around his eyes only added to his charm. He asked me to come over and taste the stew to see if it needed more salt, then turned back to focus on his complex seasoning. It was right then. The phone screen on the countertop suddenly lit up soundlessly, but with a cold blue flash indicating the arrival of an iMessage. My gaze instinctively shot toward it. The sentence that appeared on the lock screen was short, but it was enough to shatter the peaceful world I had worked so hard to build over the last decade. Sender, Nessa. Message, boss, I've missed you. Just 4 words. Nessa. That was the nickname for Vanessa. My best friend. My maid of honor. The woman I had treated like a sister for 10 years. My heart didn't race. It didn't ache. That pain had already died a week earlier when I held a certain bank statement in my shaking hands. All I had left now was a profound, icy contempt and a meticulously crafted plan. Vanessa was the new team member I had personally begged Derek to hire in his department a few months ago. I remember Derek once mentioning her at dinner, praising her for being quick, polite, and eager to learn. What I hadn't imagined was that her eagerness to learn would extend to her boss's husband. I took a deep breath, forcing the air into my lungs. The rationality of a 32-year-old woman who had climbed the corporate ladder to become a project director didn't allow me to scream or break things. Not yet. If I made a scene now, Derek would just invent some excuse. He would say it was a joke, a mistake, or that she was crazy. I needed something more. I needed irrefutable proof, a confrontation they couldn't deny. Derek was still chopping herbs, the rhythmic sound of the knife against the wooden cutting board drowning out the silence in the room. Quietly, I picked up the phone. The passcode to unlock it was our wedding anniversary. How ironic. He used the most important day of our lives as a shield for his dirty secrets. I typed in the familiar 6 digits. The screen unlocked, showing the conversation with the unread message at the top. Without reading the history, I quickly typed a reply. My fingers, cold and precise, slid across the virtual keyboard. Come over. My wife's not home tonight. I hit send. I watched as the little delivered notification appeared, and a faint, cruel smile touched my lips. I took a screenshot of that brief conversation, airdropped it to my own phone which was sitting in my lap, and then erased the reply from Derek's phone. I placed the iPhone back on the counter at the exact same angle it had been. I wanted him to be completely oblivious when the show began. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of a hunter setting a trap. I looked at Derek's back. He was still the same man with the same devoted appearance. But now, in my eyes, it was all disgusting hypocrisy. He was playing the part of the perfect husband, but his mind was probably flying to her. If he wanted to act in this farce so badly, I would make sure I directed the tragic final scene myself. "Honey," I said, my voice steady, "it tastes perfect. You don't need to change a thing." He smiled at me, clueless. "Great. I'll let it simmer for another 20 minutes. Why don't you go relax in the living room?" I nodded and walked away, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I sat on the sofa, my eyes fixed on the front door. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Tick. Tock. Every second felt like an hour. I knew where Vanessa lived, she was only 15 minutes away. If she hurried, if she was desperate enough, she would be here soon. I wondered if she would feel any guilt walking into the home of the woman who had paid her college tuition when she was broke. I wondered if she would hesitate at the door. 18 minutes later. Ding dong. The sound of the doorbell shattered the silence. It wasn't loud, but in that space, it echoed like the starting gun of a war. Derek looked up from the stove, startled. His eyes showed surprise mixed with a hint of confusion. He wiped his hands on his apron and looked at the clock. "Who could that be at this hour?" he muttered, looking toward the hallway. He turned to me as if I had the answer. I remained motionless on the sofa, maintaining an almost icy composure. I crossed my legs and looked him dead in the eye. "Stay seated," I said. "I'll get it." My voice was soft but firm, leaving him no room to move. I stood up and walked slowly toward the door. Each step sounded heavy, deliberate. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with the strange excitement of the final checkmate. I took a deep breath, straightened my posture, and put my hand on the doorknob. I turned the lock and opened the heavy wooden door. In front of me stood Vanessa. She looked stunning, I had to give her that. She was wearing a tight-fitting burgundy dress that hugged her curves, a dress that looked suspiciously similar to one I had bought last season but couldn't find recently. Her makeup was flawless, her lips painted a deep, inviting red. In her hands, she held a bottle of expensive red wine, the kind Derek loved but rarely bought for himself because of the price. The moment she saw me, the flirtatious, seductive smile on her lips vanished instantly. It was replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated panic. Her eyes widened, her pupils contracted in fear, and her face, once flushed with anticipation, turned as pale as paper. She froze, her hand gripping the neck of the wine bottle so hard her knuckles turned white. She had expected Derek to open the door. She must have imagined the scene 1,000 times in the car ride over, jumping into his arms, telling him in a syrupy voice how much she had missed him, maybe sharing a glass of that wine on the sofa while his wife was supposedly away. But the harsh reality that hit her was the image of me, Meredith, the lady of the house, her best friend, blocking the entrance with a gaze as sharp as a knife. I said nothing at first. I just silently observed her terrified expression. My silence made the atmosphere even more suffocating. Vanessa took half a step back, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something, but her throat seemed blocked, as if someone were strangling her. She looked inside the apartment past my shoulder, then back at me with the expression of a thief caught in the act. I heard Derek's footsteps approaching behind me. "Who is it, honey? What's taking so long?" he asked. His voice threw Vanessa into even greater confusion. She looked around as if searching for an escape route, her eyes darting toward the elevator. But I wasn't going to let my prey get away so easily. I smiled. It was probably a smile more terrifying than a scream. And then I spoke. "Hello, Vanessa. Are you here to see my husband?" My voice was loud and clear enough for both the person inside and the one outside to hear, loaded with a cold authority. I saw Vanessa flinch physically. She realized she had fallen into a trap, but there was no turning back. The door was open. The show had officially begun. Vanessa cowered like a baby bird that had mistakenly fallen into an eagle's nest. I. She stammered. "I heard. I was just passing by and thought. Thought what? I asked, cutting her off. That you'd bring a bottle of vintage Cabernet to a casual drop-by? You look lovely, by the way. Is that my dress? Her face turned a deep shade of crimson. No, Meredith, I bought this. I heard Derek was working late on the merger project and thought he might need a drink. As a friend. A friend, I repeated, tasting the word like it was poison. Of course. Well, since you're such a devoted friend and employee, come in. We were just about to eat. I really shouldn't, she whispered, taking another step back. If you take a single step out of this hallway, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear, tomorrow morning, the entire company, the HR department, and your religious parents back in Ohio will receive the photos and messages I have on my phone. Come in, let's have dinner, and I'll let you keep a shred of dignity for tonight. Vanessa froze. Trembling, she reluctantly stepped over the threshold. I stepped aside, sweeping my arm in a welcoming gesture that felt more like ushering a prisoner into a cell. Derek had reached the entryway. When he saw Vanessa standing there, looking like she was about to vomit, and me standing behind her with a predator's grin, his face contorted. His jaw dropped, and the color drained from his skin so fast I thought he might faint. He looked back and forth between Vanessa and me, oscillating violently between panic and confusion. He couldn't understand why Vanessa was here, or why I was receiving her so calmly if I knew anything. Nessa? Derek croaked. Why are you? She came to see you, honey, I said, placing a hand on Vanessa's rigid back. She missed her boss. Isn't that sweet? And look, she brought wine. It's a little late for a work meeting, but since she's family, I invited her to join us for your famous short ribs. Derek stood there, paralyzed. He was wearing the navy apron I gave him, holding a dish towel, looking like a deer in headlights. The man who commanded a sales team of 50 people was now reduced to a sweating, trembling mess in his own hallway. Well, don't just stand there, I clapped my hands together. Set another place at the table, Derek. Vanessa is staying for dinner. I guided Vanessa into the living room. Her legs were shaking so bad I could see her knees knocking together. I led her to the dining table and pulled out the chair directly opposite Derek's usual spot. Sit, I commanded. She sat. She clutched her purse in her lap, her eyes fixed on the tablecloth, terrified to look up. I walked to the kitchen, my heels clicking rhythmically. I needed to get glasses. But not just any glasses. I had a very specific point to make tonight. I opened the glass cabinet in the kitchen and walked past the expensive crystal stemware we used for important guests, the ones we had received as a wedding gift from my grandmother. My hand stopped on a package of thin, disposable plastic cups, the kind used for children's birthday parties or picnics. I took one of those flimsy red cups and filled it with water from the tap. The choice was not random. I wanted to belittle Vanessa through the smallest detail. I wanted her to understand that her place in this house, in our life, was as cheap and temporary as that cup, an object to be used and thrown away, not worth keeping. I returned to the dining room with a tray. I placed the red plastic cup of tap water in front of Vanessa. For Derek and myself, however, I set down the elegant crystal goblets and poured the expensive wine she had brought. The stark contrast between the vessels was obvious on the polished mahogany table. Vanessa looked at the plastic cup, which clashed violently with the luxurious setting, and her face turned a deep, humiliated red. She understood the message. It was an insult without words, but deeper and sharper than any curse. I sat down next to Derek, deliberately pressing my shoulder against his. I took his arm and rested my head on his shoulder in an affectionate gesture. Derek went stiff as a wooden doll, his muscles tense. Through his thin shirt, I could feel the frantic beating of his heart. Cold sweat continued to slide down his temples. So, Vanessa, I started, unfolding my napkin with a snap. How is the internship going? Is Derek treating you well? I know he can be demanding. Vanessa didn't answer immediately. She was staring at the plastic cup, her hands trembling in her lap. It's going well. I'm learning a lot. I bet you are, I said, smiling sweetly. Derek is a great teacher. He's always been so generous with his time. You know, we've been friends for 10 years, haven't we, Vanessa? Remember when we were in college? You used to tell me that loyalty was the most important thing in the world to you. Do you remember that? Vanessa flinched. She picked up the plastic cup and took a sip, just to have something to do with her hands. The cup crinkled loudly in the silence. Yes, she whispered. I remember. I was telling Derek just the other day, I continued, turning to my husband who was staring at his plate as if he wished it would swallow him whole. I said, Derek, the one thing I love about Vanessa is that she would never betray a friend. Right, honey? Derek choked on his own saliva. He coughed, reaching for his wine glass with a shaking hand. Yeah, right, he muttered. I served Derek a helping of the short ribs. I picked out the best, most tender piece of meat and placed it on his plate. Eat up, darling. You worked so hard on this. You need your strength. Being a boss and a husband is exhausting work, isn't it? I looked at Vanessa. You aren't eating, Ness. Is the food not to your liking? Or maybe you've lost your appetite? I'm not very hungry, she said, her voice barely audible. That's a shame, I said, cutting a piece of meat on my plate. You know, Derek and I were just talking about our future. We're planning a trip to Hawaii next month for our anniversary. And we're finally looking at buying that vacation home in the Hamptons. We want a place where we can retire one day, grow old together. It's so important to build a foundation that lasts, don't you think? Temporary flings, cheap thrills, they don't last. But marriage? Assets? Joint bank accounts? That's forever. I emphasized the words assets and bank accounts. I saw Vanessa's eyes dart to Derek. She looked desperate, pleading. She wanted him to say something, to stop this torture. But Derek, the coward, just kept his head down, pushing a potato around his plate. Speaking of assets, I said, taking a sip of wine. Derek, did you talk to HR about your promotion? The salary increase would really help with the college fund we're starting. Even though we don't have kids yet, it's good to plan ahead. I saw a flicker of confusion in Vanessa's eyes. College fund? Promotion? She probably thought she knew everything about him, but she realized in that moment that she was an outsider. I haven't heard back yet, Derek managed to say. Oh, I'm sure you will, I said confidently. Unless, of course, something happens to tarnish your reputation. You know how strict the company is about ethics. One wrong move, one scandal, and poof, the career, the pension, the reputation, all gone. The air in the room was so thick it was hard to breathe. Not even the soft hum of the refrigerator could dispel the suffocating atmosphere. I felt like I was watching a tragic silent play where each actor struggled to play their part, with the difference that only I had the script and knew the ending. I looked at the plastic cup in Vanessa's hand again. You know, Vanessa, I said, my voice dropping an octave, becoming serious. I noticed you didn't check your phone when you came in. Usually, you're glued to it. Did you receive any interesting messages tonight? Vanessa dropped the cup. Water spilled across the expensive tablecloth, soaking into the fabric. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I have to go, she stammered. I don't feel well. Sit down, I said. I didn't shout. I didn't have to. The command cracked like a whip. We haven't even had dessert. Vanessa froze halfway out of her chair, tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at Derek, begging for help, but he was staring at the spilled water as if it were the most fascinating thing in the universe. He was useless. A coward. And to think I had shared my bed with him for 7 years. I said sit, I repeated, calmly taking a bite of the short ribs. Because I think there has been a misunderstanding, and we need to clear it up. Vanessa sank back into her chair, defeated. You see, I said, wiping my mouth with the linen napkin. Tonight has been very educational. I learned that my husband makes excellent ribs. I learned that my best friend prefers red wine. And I learned that you both think I am an absolute idiot. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I unlocked it and placed it in the center of the table, screen facing up. The screenshot of the text message was displayed brightly. Does this look familiar? I asked. Derek finally looked up. When he saw the image, the I miss you from Vanessa and the reply come over, his face went from pale to gray. You. Derek whispered. You sent that? Of course I sent it, I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Who else? Did you think a ghost replied? Or did you think your little girlfriend here just telepathically knew you were alone? I turned to Vanessa. And you? You ran over here so fast you probably broke the speed limit. You thought the wife was away, so the mice could play? You thought you could come into my house, drink my wine, and sleep with my husband in my bed? Meredith, please, Vanessa sobbed, finally breaking down. It's not what you think. We fell in love. We couldn't help it. Love? I stood up then, my chair crashing backward. Don't you dare use that word in my house. You don't know what love is. Love is paying your tuition when your parents cut you off. Love is holding your hair back when you were sick in the dorms. Love is giving you a job when no one else would hire you. That is love. What you have is greed and lust. I picked up Derek's phone, which was still sitting on the counter behind me. I walked over to the table. You want him so bad, Vanessa? You want to be the one he texts goodnight to? You want to be the secret he keeps? I looked at Derek. And you? You want to live a double life? You want to play the big man? I raised his phone high in the air. Well, let's see how you communicate without this. With all the force I could muster, I smashed the iPhone down onto the edge of the granite coaster. Crack. The screen shattered into a spiderweb of glass. I didn't stop. I smashed it again and again until pieces of glass and plastic flew across the table. Get out, I hissed at Vanessa. She scrambled up, grabbing her purse. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Get out of my house! I screamed, finally letting the rage surface. Vanessa didn't need to be told twice. She ran toward the door, her heels slipping on the hardwood. I followed her, not running, but walking with the purposeful stride of an executioner. She fumbled with the lock, her breathing coming in panicked gasps. As she finally threw the door open, I leaned in close to her ear, close enough to smell her perfume, the same perfume I had bought her for her birthday. Run, Vanessa, I whispered. But remember, I know everything. I know about the hotel in the city. I know about the business trips. And I know how to remove your makeup before the world sees your real face. Next time you want to see my husband, call a lawyer first. She bolted into the hallway without looking back, the sound of her footsteps fading into the stairwell because she didn't even wait for the elevator. I slammed the door shut. The heavy thud echoed through the apartment, signaling the end of an era. I leaned my back against the door, closing my eyes for a second. My heart was pounding against my ribs, not from fear, but from the massive adrenaline rush of the confrontation. I had won the first battle. But the war? The war was just beginning. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes. Before I turned back to deal with the traitor still sitting in my dining room, I needed a moment. Pause. Hello to everyone listening. My heart was racing in that moment, and honestly, even retelling it now makes my hands shake a little. It's hard to relive the moment you realize your life is falling apart. If you are on my side, if you believe that cheaters deserve to be exposed, please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button and type the number 1 in the comments below. It helps me know that I'm not alone in this, that you are right here with me, holding my hand through this nightmare. Your support means the world to me. Go ahead, type 1 now so I can see you. Resume. Okay. Let's go back to that hallway. Because what happened next, and the secrets I uncovered about how deep their betrayal really went, is something you won't believe. I turned around and walked back into the dining room. Derek was still sitting there, staring at his smashed phone. But to understand why he did this, and why Vanessa was so desperate to steal my life, we have to go back. We have to go back to where the rot started. To understand Vanessa, you have to understand where we came from. We met during our freshman year of college. I was the girl from the suburbs, the one whose grandmother had set up a modest trust fund, ensuring I never had to worry about tuition or books. I wasn't filthy rich, but I was comfortable. Vanessa? She was the scholarship kid from a small town in Ohio, always scrambling, always stressed. I felt sorry for her. That was my first mistake. Pity is a dangerous foundation for a friendship. I remember the first time I really noticed her envy. It was our sophomore year. There was a winter formal, and I had bought this beautiful emerald green silk dress. It cost more than Vanessa's monthly food budget, I knew that. When I brought it back to the dorm, Vanessa stared at it with a hunger that made me uncomfortable. Not admiration. Hunger. It's beautiful, Meredith, she had whispered, running her fingers over the silk. You're so lucky. Everything just comes to you. You can borrow it sometime, I had offered, because that's who I was. I was the giver. 2 days before the formal, I came back to our room to find Vanessa wearing the dress. She was standing in front of the full-length mirror, spinning around, admiring herself. But when she saw me, she didn't look embarrassed. She looked angry. I spilled wine on it, she said flatly. There was a dark purple stain right on the bodice. I was just trying it on and the glass slipped. Sorry. She didn't look sorry. She looked satisfied. I ended up wearing an old black dress to the formal, and she wore a cheaper dress she had found at a thrift store, but she spent the whole night clinging to my arm, telling everyone how clumsy she was and how forgiving I was. I should have seen the pattern then. Vanessa didn't want to be my friend. She wanted to be me. Over the years, it got worse. If I bought a specific shade of lipstick, she'd buy the same one a week later. If I started jogging, she signed up for a marathon. When I started dating, she would analyze my boyfriends, pointing out their flaws, trying to get me to dump them. You can do better, Mare, she'd say. He's not good enough for us. Us. She always said us. I paid for her textbooks when her loan check was late. I let her stay in my apartment rent-free for 3 months after graduation when she couldn't find a job. I bought her the suit she wore to her first interview. I watered the weed that was choking my own garden, thinking I was nurturing a flower. And then came Derek. When I met Derek, Vanessa was single and bitter about it. She was working a dead-end administrative job, while I was already moving up in project management. When I introduced them, I saw that look in her eyes again. That hunger. He's cute, she said later, examining her nails. A little rough around the edges for you, though, isn't he? I mean, he didn't even go to an Ivy League. I like him, I said defensively. He works hard. Sure, she shrugged. Just be careful. You know how men like that are. They see a girl with money and they see a meal ticket. It was classic projection. She was warning me about gold diggers while eating the food I bought and wearing the sweater I paid for. But I laughed it off. I trusted her. I thought she was being protective. Years went by. Our friendship seemed solid, mostly because I kept giving and she kept taking. But looking back, I see the cracks I ignored. The way she would touch Derek's arm a little too long at parties. The way she would accidentally text him instead of me. The way she memorized his coffee order before I did. I created the monster that eventually came to destroy my home. I fed it, clothed it, and invited it in. And tonight, watching her run out of my apartment, I realized that the wine stain on the green dress wasn't an accident. Nothing Vanessa did was ever an accident. She had been rehearsing for this betrayal for 10 years. She had been waiting for the moment when she could finally take something of mine that I couldn't easily replace. But she underestimated me. She thought I was just the nice girl who paid the bills. She forgot that the person who holds the purse strings also holds the power. If Vanessa was the parasite, Derek was the host with a weakened immune system. I met Derek 5 years ago at a networking event. He was charming, in a self-deprecating way. He wasn't from money. He grew up in a working-class neighborhood, the son of a single mother who worked double shifts. He had a chip on his shoulder the size of a boulder, but back then, I mistook it for ambition. He told me he wanted to be a provider. He wanted to be the man of the house. It sounded sweet, traditional. But the reality was that Derek had a fragile ego that needed constant stroking. Our first major fight was about the apartment. My grandmother passed away a year after we started dating, leaving me a substantial inheritance. I wanted to use it to buy a home, our home. I found this gorgeous co-op on the Upper East Side. It needed work, but it had good bones. When I showed it to Derek, he went quiet. "It's expensive, Meredith," he said, looking at the price sheet. "I can't afford half the down payment. I won't even qualify for the mortgage on this." "It's okay," I told him, grabbing his hands. "I have the inheritance. I'll pay the down payment. We can split the monthly costs based on our salaries. We're a team, right?" He pulled away, his jaw tight. "So I'm just a guest in your house? Living off your grandma's money?" "No. It's our house," I insisted. And then, I did the stupidest thing a woman in love can do. I let my emotions override my legal sense. "Look, I'll put your name on the deed. We'll be equal owners. Joint tenancy. It's ours, Derek. 50-50. His eyes lit up. The tension vanished. "You'd do that? Even though I'm not putting in the cash?" "Of course," I said. "Because I believe in you. I know you're going to be huge one day." I bought his manhood with a multi-million-dollar apartment. I literally signed away half of my grandmother's legacy just to make him feel like a big shot. And for a while, it worked. He walked around the place like he was the king of New York. He boasted to his friends about the place we bought. He never mentioned that I bought it. But the insecurity never really went away. As my career skyrocketed, I became a director before I turned 30, his stalled. He was a good salesman, but he wasn't a leader. He struggled with strategy. He stayed at the mid-management level while I was attending board meetings. I tried to downplay my success. I stopped talking about my bonuses. I let him pick the restaurants. I let him drive my car. I shrank myself so he wouldn't feel small. But a man like Derek is a bottomless pit of need. No matter how much I gave, it wasn't enough to fill the void where his self-esteem should have been. He needed someone to look up to him, not someone he had to look up to. He needed an audience. He needed a cheerleader. And that's where Vanessa came in perfectly. I remember the night he came home complaining about his team. "They don't respect me," he grumbled, loosening his tie. "They think just because I didn't get an MBA I don't know what I'm doing." "You have street smarts, honey," I soothed him. That's worth more. I need people on my team who are loyal, he said. People who are hungry. Not these entitled Ivy League brats. A light bulb went off in my head. A terrible, fateful light bulb. Vanessa is looking for a job, I said. She's hungry. She's loyal. And she looks up to you. She always tells me how smart she thinks you are. Derek paused. He looked at me, and a slow smile spread across his face. Vanessa? Yeah, she is a hustler. And she needs a break, right? Exactly, I said, sealing my own fate. Bring her in for an interview. Be her hero, Derek. Be her hero. I handed him the perfect victim, the perfect admirer, on a silver platter. I gave him exactly what he craved, a woman who needed him for survival. Unlike me, who wanted him but didn't need him, Vanessa needed him. And to a weak man, being needed feels a hell of a lot like being loved. So, he hired her. And I, the supportive wife and the loyal best friend, patted myself on the back for solving everyone's problems. I had no idea I was writing the first chapter of my own divorce. The interview was a farce, but I didn't know that at the time. I helped Vanessa prepare. I reviewed her resume, fixing the typos and exaggerating her project management experience, which was mostly just organizing the office Christmas party at her last job. You have to look professional, I told her the night before. No low-cut tops. No short skirts. This is a corporate environment, Ness. She nodded, wide-eyed. I know, Meredith. I want to make you proud. The next day, she showed up at my apartment before heading to the office. I blinked. She was wearing a navy blue pencil skirt and a crisp white blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon. She looked exactly like me. It was my signature look. She had even bought the same brand of sensible nude heels I wore to board meetings. Do I look okay? She spun around. You look very professional, I said, pushing down the weird feeling in my gut. Derek came out of the bedroom, adjusting his watch. He stopped when he saw her. Wow. You look like you mean business, Vanessa. I learned from the best, she said, looking at me but directing her smile at him. I just want to be an asset to your team, Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds. She said it with a breathless reverence that made Derek stand a little taller. He hired her on the spot. For the first few months, things seemed fine. Vanessa was the model employee. She fetched coffee, she stayed late, she organized the files. Derek would come home beaming. Vanessa is a lifesaver, he'd say. She actually listens to me. She takes notes when I speak. I told you, I'd say, happy that he was happy. But then, the shift happened. It was subtle. It started with the damsel in distress act. Vanessa's car broke down, Derek said one rainy Tuesday. I'm going to swing by and give her a ride home. It's on the way. It wasn't on the way. It was 20 minutes in the opposite direction. Vanessa doesn't understand the new software, he said a week later. I'm going to stay late and tutor her. She's crying in the break room, poor thing. I felt a twinge of annoyance. Derek, isn't there an IT trainer for that? She's embarrassed, Mare. She trusts me. I'm her mentor. Mentor. That became the buzzword. He was mentoring her over lunch. He was mentoring her via text messages at 9 p.m. One night, we were at a company mixer. I was talking to the CEO, discussing market trends, holding my own. Derek was by the bar, looking a bit out of place. Vanessa walked up to him. I watched from across the room. She wasn't wearing her Meredith copycat suit. She was wearing a soft, pink dress that looked vulnerable and feminine. She put a hand on his arm, looked up at him with those big, doe eyes, and laughed at something he said. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was an "you are the funniest, most powerful man in the room" laugh. I saw Derek's chest puff out. He looked around the room to see who was watching. He didn't look at me, the wife who challenged him to be better. He looked at her, the girl who made him feel like he was already perfect. I walked over. "Everything okay here?" Vanessa jumped back as if she'd been burned. "Oh. Hi, Meredith. I was just telling Derek how amazing his presentation was today. I didn't understand half of it, honestly. He's so smart." "It was a standard quarterly review," I said dryly. "Basic metrics." Derek frowned at me. "It was complex, Meredith. Vanessa appreciates the nuance." There it was. The divide. I was the critic, she was the fan. And in that moment, I saw him choose his fan over his partner. I should have intervened then. I should have told him to transfer her. But I didn't want to be the jealous, insecure wife. I trusted my best friend. I didn't realize that while I was busy building our empire, she was busy figuring out how to steal the keys to the castle. The suspicion didn't hit me all at once like a lightning bolt. It was a slow creep, like mold growing behind wallpaper. It was the smell of a different cologne on his shirts, not women's perfume, but a cheaper, muskier cologne than he usually wore. I realized later it was because he was showering at the gym before coming home, using the generic soap there to wash off her scent. It was the way he started guarding his phone. He used to leave it on the coffee table, face up. Now, it was always in his pocket, or face down. He changed the settings so text previews didn't show on the lock screen. Privacy updates, he claimed when I asked. And then there was Vanessa. She stopped copying me. She started getting bolder. She would make little comments at lunch. "Derek loves spicy food, doesn't he? We ordered Thai yesterday and he went for the hottest curry." "Derek hates spicy food," I corrected her. "He has acid reflux." "Oh," she smiled, a secret little smirk. "Maybe his tastes are changing." People change, Meredith. That smirk kept me up at night. I needed proof. I wasn't going to be the crazy wife checking pockets. I was a director. I dealt in data. I needed an ally inside the company. Enter Brandon. Brandon was a 24-year-old IT guy who worked in the server room. Most people in the office ignored him or treated him like the help. But a year ago, when his mother was sick, I had approved his remote work request and sent a care package to the hospital. He had never forgotten it. I invited Brandon for coffee. We met at a Starbucks 3 blocks from the office, away from prying eyes. "Brandon," I said, sliding a latte toward him. "I need a favor. A big one. And it stays between us." He looked nervous. "Is it about the server migration?" "Because it's about Derek," I said quietly. "And Vanessa." Brandon went still. He looked down at his cup. "Oh. You know something," I said. It wasn't a question. "People talk, Meredith," he said uncomfortably. "They book the conference room on the 4th floor a lot. The one without windows. They block it out for strategy meetings, but no one else is ever invited." My stomach turned. The 4th floor conference room. How classy. "I need logs," I said. "Chat logs. Emails. Anything that proves they are using company time and resources for non-work activities." "Meredith, I could get fired," Brandon whispered. "That's a privacy violation." "Derek is using the corporate card for client dinners that don't exist," I lied. Well, it was a half-lie. I suspected it, but I didn't know for sure. If he's embezzling, and you help uncover it, you're not a snitch. You're a whistleblower. I'll protect you, Brandon. I promise. He hesitated, then nodded. Give me 2 days. 2 days later, I found a small USB drive in my coat pocket after leaving the office. There was a sticky note attached, "I'm sorry. I went home early that day. Derek was at a late meeting." I sat at my dining room table and plugged the USB into my laptop. What I found was worse than I imagined. It wasn't just flirting. It was a full-blown life they were building on company servers. There were hundreds of chat messages. "Derek, she's so controlling. I can't breathe at home. Vanessa, you deserve to be free, baby. Just wait until the bonus comes in." And then, I opened a folder labeled expenses. Brandon had pulled the metadata from Derek's digital receipts. Hotel rooms booked under consulting fees. Jewelry store charges categorized as office supplies. And a recurring transfer of funds to an external account labeled VFuture. I pulled up our joint bank account on another tab. I cross-referenced the dates. Every time Derek made a withdrawal or paid a bill, money was moving. They weren't just sleeping together. They were stealing from me. They were building a nest egg to run away together, and they were funding it with my money and his company's money. I sat there in the silence of my empty apartment, the blue light of the screen illuminating my face. The sadness evaporated. The heartbreak turned into cold, hard steel. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Claudia?" I said when the voice answered. "It's Meredith. I need a lawyer. And I need the meanest shark you have." That was 1 week before the dinner. 1 week before I broke his phone. I spent that week gathering every scrap of paper, every receipt, every screenshot. I built a case file that would make the FBI jealous. So when Derek sat there in the dining room, trembling because I smashed his phone, he had no idea that the phone was the least of his problems. I wasn't just going to divorce him. I was going to ruin him. Let's go back to that moment in front of my laptop, 1 week before the dinner. The moment the last shred of my love for Derek turned into ash. I had the USB drive from Brandon plugged in. The blue light of the screen was the only thing illuminating my face in the dark apartment. I opened the folder labeled Financials. Brandon, bless his heart, hadn't just given me chat logs, he had scraped the metadata from the files Derek had saved on his work cloud drive. Derek was arrogant. He thought because he was a manager, IT wouldn't audit his personal folders. He forgot that IT sees everything. There was a spreadsheet named vfuture_budget.xlsx. I clicked it open. My breath hitched in my throat. It was a business plan. A startup plan. VFuture stood for Vanessa's Future, or maybe Victory Future, I don't know. But the details were sickeningly clear. They were planning to open a boutique marketing agency. Vanessa would be the CEO. Derek would be the silent partner. And the funding? Column A listed the capital sources. Loan from Loretta, mom $30,000 company expenses, diverted $15,000 joint savings withdrawal, planned $50,000. I stared at that last number. $50,000. That was exactly the amount currently sitting in our dream home savings account, the money we were supposedly saving for the Hamptons house. The money I had contributed 80% of from my bonuses over the last 2 years. I quickly logged into our joint bank account. I checked the pending transactions. There it was. A scheduled transfer set for next Monday, the day after he expected his promotion to be finalized. He was going to wipe us clean. He was going to take the money we saved for our old age and use it to build a throne for his mistress. But it got worse. I scrolled down to the intellectual property tab of their business plan. There were client lists. My client lists. Derek had accessed my laptop while I was sleeping or in the shower, and he had copied the contact information of the vendors and clients I had spent a decade cultivating. He wasn't just stealing my money and my husband, he was planning to steal my career. He was going to hand Vanessa my Rolodex and let her play businesswoman using my hard work as her starter kit. I read their chat logs again, looking for context. Vanessa, I don't want to start from zero, babe. It's too hard. Derek, you won't have to. Meredith has the best contacts in the city. I'll get the database. You'll hit the ground running. She'll be too busy crying over the divorce to notice her clients are gone. Too busy crying. I read those 3 words over and over again until they blurred. He thought I was weak. He thought I was just the emotional wife who would crumble. He didn't know he was married to a project director who managed multi-million-dollar risks for a living. I didn't cry. I felt a cold, metallic taste in my mouth. I reached for my phone and took photos of the screen, then backed up the files to 3 different cloud accounts and an external hard drive. I printed hard copies. I wanted physical proof that couldn't be deleted remotely. Then, I looked at the line item about his mother, loan from Loretta, $30,000. Loretta, my mother-in-law, lived on a fixed income. She had sold her small plot of land in Ohio recently to move into a retirement community. That money was her safety net. Derek had convinced her to give it to him. For what? Did he tell her it was for us? Or did he lie and say it was an investment that would double her money? Knowing Loretta, she probably gave it to him thinking she was helping her successful son out of a jam. He was a monster. He was cannibalizing everyone who loved him, his wife, his mother, his employer, just to feed the ego of a woman who wanted a shortcut to success. I closed the laptop. I sat in the darkness for a long time. The anger was there, boiling like lava, but I pushed it down, compressing it into fuel. I needed a strategy. If I confronted him now, he would deny it. He would cancel the transfer, hide the money, and gaslight me. No. I needed to let him think he was winning. I needed to let him walk into the trap. I looked at the calendar. The dinner I was planning, the one where I would invite Vanessa, was in 1 week. That gave me 7 days to secure my assets and build a legal fortress around myself. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Claudia, my college friend who is now one of the most feared divorce attorneys in Manhattan. Emergency. I need you. It involves embezzlement, infidelity, and assets. Clear your schedule for tomorrow morning. She replied instantly. 8 a.m. Bring coffee. And bring the receipts. I slept like a baby that night. Not because I was at peace, but because I was exhausted from the weight of the truth. And because I knew, with absolute certainty, that Derek Reynolds was about to have the worst week of his life. The next morning, I walked into Claudia's office in Midtown. The smell of expensive leather and old books calmed me instantly. Claudia was waiting, looking immaculate in a sharp gray suit that screamed billable hours. Talk to me, she said, not wasting time on pleasantries. I laid it all out. The photos, the bank statements, the chat logs, the business plan. Claudia flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. Occasionally, she would hum or tap her pen against the desk. When she finished, she took off her glasses and looked at me. Okay. This is a mess. But it's a mess we can win. I want him to hurt, Claudia, I said, my voice steady. I don't just want a divorce. I want justice. We'll get justice, she said coolly. But first, we get the money. Emotional victories are great, but financial victories keep you warm at night. She pulled out a legal pad. Here is the problem. You put his name on the deed of the apartment. That makes it marital property. In New York, equitable distribution means he could fight for 50% of the equity, regardless of who paid the down payment. And since you earn more, you might even be on the hook for alimony if he plays the lifestyle card. I am not paying that cheater a dime, I hissed. No, you're not, Claudia smiled, a sharp, predatory grin. Because we have leverage. Two kinds. First, the embezzlement. If this gets out, he goes to jail. Second, the fraud against you. But we need to make him sign over the house voluntarily before we file the papers. We need him to trade the house for his freedom. How? Do you remember when you renovated the kitchen 3 years ago? Claudia asked. You told me your parents loaned you the money because your liquidity was tied up in stocks. Yes, I nodded. $40,000. My dad wrote a check. Did you ever pay it back? No, my dad said take our time. It was an informal loan. Was there paperwork? Yes, I remembered. My dad is old school. He made us sign a promissory note. Just a simple document stating that we, Derek and Meredith Reynolds, owe John Smith $40,000, payable upon demand. Claudia's eyes lit up. Find that note. That is a marital debt. Before any assets are split, debts must be settled. If your father demands payment now, Derek is liable for half. He doesn't have $20,000, does he? He doesn't have $20, I said. He spent it all on hotels and Vanessa. Perfect, Claudia said. Here is the plan. We draft a postnuptial agreement, or a separation agreement, where he agrees to transfer his share of the apartment to you in exchange for you assuming the debt to your parents and, let's say, not reporting his corporate theft to the police immediately. Blackmail? I asked. Negotiation, she corrected. Aggressive negotiation. We present him with a choice. Option A, he walks away with nothing, signs the house to you, and we keep quiet about the embezzlement for now. Option B, we file for divorce, exposing the affair and the theft in public court records, send the evidence to his company, and your father sues him for the debt, forcing him into bankruptcy. It was brilliant. It was brutal. It was exactly what he deserved. One more thing, Claudia added. You mentioned a transfer scheduled for Monday. You need to stop that. I can't access his login without alerting him, I said. Then move the money first, Claudia said. It's a joint account. You have equal right to it. Transfer the $50,000 into a separate account in your name only. Today. Right now. Won't that look bad in court? Let him sue you for it, Claudia shrugged. By the time he finds a lawyer cheap enough to take his case, we'll already have the evidence of his intent to steal it. Possession is 9/10 of the law, Meredith. Protect your assets. I pulled out my phone right there in her office and made the transfer. I moved every cent of our savings into my personal high-yield savings account. Done, I said, my hands shaking slightly. Good. Claudia stood up and handed me a thick envelope. These are the separation papers. Keep them hidden. When the moment is right, when he is most vulnerable, most terrified, you put these in front of him. And you don't let him leave until he signs. I took the envelope. It felt heavy, like a weapon. Thank you, Claudia. Don't thank me yet, she said. Go home. Play the part. Let him cook you dinner. And wait for the perfect moment to strike. And that brings us back to the present. Back to the dining room with the shattered iPhone and the smell of braised ribs turning cold. The week of waiting was over. The trap had been sprung. Vanessa was gone. Now, it was just me and Derek. And I was holding all the cards. Let's return to the dining room. The silence after the front door slammed behind Vanessa was deafening. The air was thick with the smell of expensive wine spilled on the rug and the metallic tang of adrenaline. Derek was still sitting there, staring at the fragments of his phone like they were the pieces of his life. He looked small. The bravado, the arrogance, the man of the house posture, it was all gone. He was slumped over, his hands gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. I walked back into the room slowly. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I was the eye of the storm. "Look at me," I said. He slowly lifted his head. His eyes were red, filled with a pathetic mixture of fear and fake remorse. "Mare," he croaked. "Baby, please." "It's not," she seduced me. "You know how stress is at work." I was weak. "It didn't mean anything. I love you." "Stop," I said, holding up a hand. "Do not insult my intelligence. I know about the future." Derek froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The blood drained from his face so completely he looked like a corpse. "I know about the business plan," I continued, ticking points off on my fingers. "I know about the client list you stole from my laptop. I know about the $30,000 you took from your mother. And I know about the transfer you scheduled for Monday." He started to shake. How did you?" "I'm a project director, Derek. Risk assessment is my job." "And you?" "You are a liability." I walked over to the sideboard where I had hidden Claudia's envelope under a stack of magazines. I pulled out the legal documents and slapped them onto the table, right on top of a piece of broken glass. "Here are your options," I said, my voice cold and hard as steel. "Option A, you sign these papers right now. You agree to transfer your entire share of this apartment to me. You assume full responsibility for the debt to my parents, which, by the way, I am calling in immediately. And you walk away with your clothes and your car. That's it." "But, the apartment, that's my home too," he whined, tears leaking from his eyes. "That's worth millions. You can't just take it." "Option B," I interrupted, leaning closer to him. "I send the USB drive I have in my pocket to your CEO, the HR director, and the police. You go to jail for embezzlement. You get blacklisted from every industry in the state. My father sues you for the loan, forcing you into bankruptcy. And I destroy Vanessa's life so thoroughly she'll have to move to another continent to find a job." Derek looked at the papers, then at me. He looked like a trapped rat searching for a hole. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "You loved me." "I loved the man I thought you were," I corrected. "I don't know who you are." "The man I loved wouldn't steal from his own mother." "I needed the money," he shouted suddenly, slamming his fist on the table. "You don't understand. You have everything. You have the money, the career, the respect. I have nothing. I just wanted to build something of my own. Vanessa believed in me. Vanessa believed in my money." I yelled back. "You think she loves you? She loves the lifestyle you promised her. She loves the idea of being a CEO on my dime. Call her. Go ahead. Call her and tell her you're broke. Tell her I froze the accounts, which I did, by the way, this morning. Tell her you have no job, no house, and no money. See how much she loves you then." Derek stared at me. The challenge hung in the air. "Do it," I said, pointing to my own phone which I had placed on the table. "Use my phone. Put it on speaker. Let's hear true love speak." He hesitated. His hand shook as he reached for my phone. He needed to believe that someone was on his side. He needed to believe that his betrayal was worth something. He dialed her number. It rang once. Twice. Then she picked up. "Derek?" Vanessa's voice came through, sounding frantic. "Oh my God, did she kill you? Did you get out?" "Ness," Derek said, his voice trembling. I'm still here. Listen, everything is blown. She knows about the money. She froze the accounts." Silence on the other end. "Ness? What do you mean she froze the accounts?" Vanessa's voice changed instantly. The sweetness was gone. It was sharp, cold. What about the transfer? The capital for the office lease? It's gone, Derek said, tears streaming down his face. I have nothing, Vanessa. She's taking the house. I might lose my job. But we have each other, right? We can start small. We can go to your parents' place in Ohio. Ohio? Vanessa screeched. Are you kidding me? I'm not going back to that hellhole. You told me you had this handled. You said she was stupid. You said you had the 50 grand secured. I thought I did. You useless idiot, she screamed. I wasted 6 months on you. Do you know how many guys I turned down because you promised me a company? Don't call me again, Derek. Lose my number. Click. The line went dead. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I had ever felt. Derek held the phone, staring at the black screen. The realization washed over him, the brutal, humiliating truth that I had known all along. He wasn't her hero. He was her mark. I took the phone from his limp hand. Option A, I said softly. Sign the papers, Derek. Or I destroy what's left of you. He didn't fight anymore. Broken, sobbing like a child, he picked up the pen. Watching Derek sign those papers was not triumphant. It was pathetic. His signature was shaky, a crooked scrawl that officially ended our marriage and his claim to my home. He signed over the deed. He signed the admission of debt. He signed his life away. Pack a bag, I said when he put the pen down. You can come back for the rest of your things when I'm not here. I want you out tonight. He stood up, looking like an old man. Where will I go? I don't care, I said. Try a hotel. Oh wait, you don't have a credit card anymore, do you? I canceled the supplementary card an hour ago. He looked at me with pure hatred. You planned this. You're cold, Meredith. You're ice cold. You made me this way, I replied. He shuffled to the bedroom. I heard the zipper of a suitcase. 10 minutes later, he was at the door. He paused, looking back at the apartment, at the life he had torpedoed. I'm sorry, he whispered. No, you're not, I said. You're just sorry you got caught. He left. I locked the door, engaged the deadbolt, and finally let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for a week. I sank onto the floor of the entryway and cried. Not for him. But for the wasted time. For the love I had poured into a black hole. But the tears only lasted 10 minutes. I wiped my face. I wasn't done. Derek thought that by signing the papers, he had saved his career. He thought he had chosen option A. But he forgot one thing, I never promised I wouldn't send the evidence if he signed. I just listed it as an option. He had broken his vows. Why should I keep my word to a thief? I walked back to my laptop. I pulled up the email draft I had prepared with Brendan's help. Subject, urgent, internal audit/ethics violation report, Derek Reynolds. Attached was the PDF. The chat logs. The receipts showing him charging personal jewelry to client accounts. The future business plan that utilized stolen company data. I had promised Derek I wouldn't send it to the police immediately. I never said I wouldn't send it to the CEO. This wasn't just revenge. This was protecting his company. If he stayed, he would embezzle again. He was a cancer. And Vanessa? She was in the CC line. Along with the HR director. I looked at the clock. It was 11 p.m. If I sent it now, it would be the first thing they saw on Monday morning. Wait. Monday was his promotion meeting. A cruel idea formed in my mind. Why send it now? Why not wait until the exact moment he walked into that boardroom, thinking he was about to be made vice president? I set a scheduled send time, Monday, 8:55 a.m. 5 minutes before the board meeting started. I also opened the audio file on my phone, the recording of Derek and Vanessa's call on speakerphone. The one where he admitted to the theft and she admitted to using him. I saved it. That was for Vanessa. I poured myself a glass of the expensive wine Vanessa had brought, the bottle she never got to drink. It tasted like victory. The weekend passed in a blur of cleaning. I scrubbed the house. I changed the sheets. I packed Derek's remaining things into garbage bags and left them in the lobby with the doorman. I wanted every trace of him gone. Monday morning arrived. The sky was gray, a storm brewing over Manhattan. I dressed in my sharpest suit. I wasn't going to the office, I had taken a personal day. But I wanted to be dressed for the occasion. At 8:50 a.m., I sat with my coffee, watching the clock on my laptop. 8:54 a.m. 8:55 a.m. Sent. The email flew through the digital ether, carrying the nuclear bomb that would obliterate Derek's professional life. I imagined the scene. The HR director's phone pinging. The CEO frowning as he opened the attachment. The sudden hush in the room. My phone buzzed. It was Brandon. Text, holy SHT. The CEO just ran out of his office screaming for security. Asterisk. I smiled. The dominoes were falling. I didn't need to be there to see it. Brendan texted me the play-by-play like a sports commentator. 9 a.m., Derek walks into the boardroom. He's wearing his lucky tie. He looks tired but confident. 9:05 a.m., the CEO walks in. He's not smiling. He has a stack of papers. He throws them on the table. 9:10 a.m., security is called to the 12th floor. According to Brendan, and later confirmed by other office gossip, it was a bloodbath. The CEO didn't just fire Derek, he eviscerated him. He projected the V-Future spreadsheet onto the conference room screen. He showed the entire board how Derek had been siphoning funds. Derek tried to deny it. He tried to blame it on a clerical error. But then the CEO played the trump card, the chat logs where Derek called the board members dinosaurs and bragged about stealing their contacts. 2 security guards, big guys named Tony and Mike who Derek had always been rude to, grabbed him by the arms. They didn't let him pack his desk. They marched him out through the main bullpen. 50 employees watched. 50 people who Derek had bossed around, belittled, and ignored. They watched him get dragged out like a criminal, his feet barely touching the floor. But the show wasn't over. 9:20 a.m., HR goes to Vanessa's cubicle. Vanessa was applying lipstick, probably waiting for Derek to come out with his promotion so she could celebrate. Instead, the HR director, a stern woman named Mrs. Higgins, appeared with a cardboard box. "Pack your things, Ms. Miller. You have 5 minutes." "Excuse me?" Vanessa laughed nervously. "I think there's a mistake. Derek, Mr. Reynolds, will clear this up." "Mr. Reynolds has been terminated for cause," Mrs. Higgins announced loud enough for the whole floor to hear. "And since you are listed as the co-conspirator in the embezzlement scheme found on his drive, you are also terminated. Effective immediately." The color drained from Vanessa's face. The office went silent. "That's a lie!" Vanessa shrieked. "I didn't steal anything. He did it. He told me it was his money." "We have your chat logs, Ms. Miller," Mrs. Higgins said coldly. "We have you asking him to fudge the numbers so you could buy office furniture." "Security!" Vanessa started crying. Not the pretty, delicate crying she used on Derek. Ugly, heaving sobs. She threw her stapler into the box. She tried to grab her laptop, but IT had already remotely locked it. She walked the walk of shame down the long hallway. The women in the office, the ones Vanessa had sneered at, the ones she had called frumpy and jealous, watched her go. No one said a word. No one offered a tissue. As she reached the elevator, she saw Derek standing there with security, holding his own box of junk. They looked at each other. There was no love left. Only blame. "You ruined me," Vanessa screamed at him in the lobby. "You loser. You said you were rich. You used me," Derek yelled back. It was the perfect finale. The power couple imploding in the lobby of the building they thought they would conquer. I sat in my living room, reading Brandon's texts, sipping my coffee. It was over. The threat was neutralized. But there was one loose end. One innocent person who was about to get hurt, and I needed to handle it before Derek could spin his web of lies again. Loretta. Derek's mother. I knew Derek. He was desperate now. He had no money, no job, no wife, no mistress. He would go to the only person who had never said no to him. He would go to his mother, and he would try to drain the last few drops of blood from her to save himself. I couldn't let that happen. Even though Loretta had enabled him her whole life, she didn't deserve to be destitute. My phone rang. It was her. Speak of the devil. "Meredith." Her voice shrill and angry. "What have you done to my son? He just called me crying. He says you threw him out. You stole his house. How could you be so heartless?" I took a deep breath. "Loretta, listen to me carefully." "No, you listen. He is a good man. He made a mistake. Men have needs. You probably drove him to it with your career and your coldness. You fix this, Meredith. You give him back his house or I will." "He stole your money, Loretta," I cut her off. Silence. "What?" "The $30,000 you sent him last month. The money from selling your land. Did he tell you it was an investment?" "Yes," she faltered. For bonds. High yield." "It wasn't for bonds," I said softly. "I'm sending you a screenshot right now. Look at your phone." I sent her the image of the V-Future spreadsheet, highlighting the line, "Loan from Loretta Capital for Vanessa's salary." "He gave your money to his mistress, Loretta. To pay her salary." I heard a gasp on the other end. Then a sound that broke my heart, the sound of an old woman weeping. The sobbing on the other end of the line was painful to hear. Loretta had been a difficult mother-in-law, critical, overbearing, always insisting that Derek was God's gift to the earth, but she was still a mother. And she had just realized her golden boy had robbed her blind. "No," she whispered. "He wouldn't. He said, he swore on his father's grave." "I have the bank transfer records, Loretta," I said gently. "He moved the money into an account called V-Future the day after you sent it. He used it to put a deposit on a commercial lease for her. It's gone." $30,000, she wailed. "That was for my assisted living. That was all I had left." "I know," I said. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't doing it for Derek. I was doing it for my own karma. "Loretta, listen. I can't get that money back from him. He spent it. But when the divorce is final, and I sell his car and liquidate his 401k to pay off the debts, if there is anything left, I will send it to you. I won't let you starve." "Meredith." She choked out. "After everything I said to you. Just promise me one thing," I said. "Don't let him move in with you. He will drain you dry. He needs to hit rock bottom." I understand," she said. Her voice sounded 10 years older. He called me. He asked if he could come to the facility. I'll tell security not to let him in. I hung up. It was a tragedy, really. Derek had destroyed his own safety net. The next few weeks were a blur of legalities. With the evidence of embezzlement hanging over his head, Derek didn't dare fight the divorce terms. He signed everything Claudia put in front of him. He was terrified I would press criminal charges. The company decided not to prosecute him solely to avoid the bad PR of a public scandal, but they demanded he pay back the misappropriated funds. He had to cash out his small retirement fund to pay them back. He was left with zero. I heard through the grapevine that he was crashing on a friend's couch in Queens, working under the table as a bartender because no reputable company would hire him after the background check flagged his termination for unethical conduct. And Vanessa? Her fate was even more pathetic. Without Derek's money and protection, she couldn't afford her apartment in the city. She was evicted 2 weeks after getting fired. She tried to reach out to other guys in the office, but the story had spread. She was radioactive. The homewrecker label stuck to her like glue. One rainy Tuesday, I was walking out of my office building and I saw her. She was standing on the corner, arguing with a cab driver, holding a broken umbrella. She looked haggard. Her roots were showing. The glamorous, polished Vanessa was gone. She saw me. For a second, our eyes met. I didn't stop. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just looked through her, as if she were a ghost, and got into my car. That was the greatest revenge of all. Indifference. She wasn't worth my anger anymore. She was just a stranger with a bad umbrella. Just when I thought the dust had settled, one final secret unearthed itself. It came in the form of a letter addressed to Derek that arrived at the apartment a month after he left. It was from a fertility clinic. I shouldn't have opened it. Legally, it wasn't mine. But curiosity is a powerful thing. It was a bill. For storage fees. Date of storage, 6 months ago. Patient, Vanessa Miller. Partner, Derek Reynolds. They had frozen embryos.